This episode brought to you by Cafe Imports, Minneapolis-based importers of fine specialty green coffees. Independently owned and operated since 1993, Cafe Imports has been dedicated to decreasing its impact on the earth through renewable energy, carbon neutrality, and by supporting conservational efforts in places where quality coffee is grown and also where quality coffee is consumed. Where does your coffee come from? Welcome to the Lake Superior Podcast. I'm Walt, Lindala.
And I'm Frida, Waara. We are made stronger by story, and there's no better source than the continent's largest body of fresh water, Lake Superior.
So join us as we highlight the 5 national parks that ring this greatest of the Great Lakes, meet the people, tour the places, and learn about the projects that make these parks and body of water so remarkable.
This podcast made possible with the support of the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation and Media Brew Communications.
I'm Walt Lindala.
And I'm Frida, Waara.
Welcome once again to the Lake Superior Podcast. Today, Frida, something really cool is on here. I mean, you're just aglow with this because this is something I know that for you is particularly interesting. And for many of those that check in with us on the podcast, this is also a big part of the Big Lake. Tell us what we're talking about today, a little bit.
We're talking about lighthouses. Walt, I mean, even if you don't love the lakes, there's something that you realize. And a lighthouse, iconic symbol that just is out there. It's fascinating. And I did a little bit of research trying to dig into what we can find out about lighthouses. And it's really exciting to know that right now there's about 200 active lighthouses on the Great Lakes. And when you look at those numbers, 56 of them are on Lake Superior. And in the whole country, in the whole United States of America, Michigan has the most lighthouses. Hallelujah.
And we like that very much. And one of those, of course, is the Rock of Ages Lighthouse. And joining us today on the podcast is David Gerth, who is the founder and current director of the Rock of Ages Lighthouse Preservation Society. Hello, David. Welcome to the podcast.
Good to be with you today.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get right into it. Tell us about your love for these remote places in Lake Superior that motivates you to do what it is you do.
Well, I just always loved remote places, the boundary waters here in Minnesota. And, I discovered Isle Royale a couple of years back and, saw Rock of Ages and just fell in love with the lighthouse and then visited the island and just fell in love with the island and the people of Isle Royale. And just wanted to give back and be a part of, something on the island.
We got to take a break here for just a second, Dave, because we got to talk about when you go see Rock of Ages, it's not like, you can come to the Marquette Harbor, you can see our lighthouse, you can see so many really cool things. But Rock of Ages, just to get to it, let our listeners know it's not an easy feat.
No, Rock of Ages is one of the most remote lighthouses in North America. It is 14 miles offshore of Minnesota and 3 miles southwest of Isle Royale itself. So it's actually offshore, just sitting on a rock that's barely big enough for the lighthouse that sits on it.
Now, tell me about the first time you saw it. What was that like for you?
The first time I saw it, I went out there with one of the park rangers, and it was just thick fog. And we could see the lighthouse on the radar on the little boat that we were heading out there in. But we couldn't see the lighthouse until we were just a couple hundred feet from it, and it just loomed out of the fog above us. And that was, that was it for me. It was just an amazing sight.
You talked a little bit about where it's located, but tell us a little bit about the dimensions of this particular lighthouse. How big is it and those types of things?
Well, the tower itself is 10 stories tall and 132 feet. So it is one of the tallest lighthouses on the Great Lakes. And it's a massive structure out in the middle of nowhere. The foundation that it sits on is 50 feet across and 30 feet tall. And that's, and the caisson is what we call it. And the walls of the caisson are 12 feet thick of solid poured concrete. And that's what anchors the lighthouse itself to the rock and protects it from ice and storms on Lake Superior.
12 feet thick. That's what you have to be to protect it. And has it been protected? When you first saw it, was it in good shape?
Well, I mean, yeah, structurally, it's been there for more than 100 years now, and it's stood up to every storm that comes through. It's really remarkable because we've seen pictures of it in the wintertime too, when ice floes just come across Lake Superior and just run into the lighthouse. So you just see the ice just heaved up against the side of the tower, and it's just amazing. And same with the waves. I mean, there's 80-mile-an-hour winds and 25, 30-foot waves that come out there and just sweep over the lighthouse. But it stands up to whatever comes its way.
You mentioned that you have a passion for remote locations. Obviously, that meets the mark, and you like old buildings, and that meets the mark. How were you able to turn this into this effort to restore this lighthouse?
Well, it's been a long effort. I mean, we started the nonprofit about 10 years ago now, and it took the first 5 years to transfer the lighthouse from the U.S. Coast Guard to the National Park Service and establish a partnership agreement with Isle Royale National Park, and then to start restoration work about 5 years ago. And we've been restoring the interior up till now. And that's been our effort, just to make sure it's safe for volunteers out there and comfortable for people staying long term at the lighthouse to do the restoration work.
Dave, you have got to share. Lots of folks are doing renovation projects. Okay, I'm gonna remodel the bathroom.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna or honey, well, let's paint the living room. Okay, you've got to give us step by step. First of all, how did you come up with the plan? What do you do first, and then how do you get out there with your tools? Explain that for us.
Yeah, it's a huge process. I mean, we plan all year round just to go out there for about 7 weeks of the summer to do our restoration work. So it takes a lot of planning and preparation. And at the lighthouse, we started in the parts of the tower that were in the best condition, just to make a space where we can set up, beds and living space. So we started basically in the middle of the tower, and we've been working out of there ever since. But everything that we need has to go out on the Ranger 3 that goes out to Isle Royale from Houghton. And then it goes around the island on an LCM, a landing craft, around to our base operations on Barnum Island. And then by there, it goes by a small boat out to the lighthouse itself. So everything's handled many, many times. And then once you're out there, there's no hardware stores, obviously, anywhere nearby.
Right.
So if you forgot something, you just make a new plan or make a note to bring it next time you're out. It's just complicated and tough, but it's really amazing to be out there.
We're talking with David Gerth on the Lake Superior podcast today. He's founder and current director of the Rock of Ages Lighthouse Preservation Society. I stumbled to say mightily. I got a question for you on this, David, though. It's like we talk about renovations and remodelings and restorations and all that kind of stuff. But this being a national park must create some certain guidelines, challenges for historic preservation that you have to follow. Tell me about how you work around that or in accordance with that.
Yeah, we work with Iowa National Park to get our approvals, and then they work with the state of Michigan to get the approvals that they need from the State Historic Society standpoint. So yeah, all of our plans and the work that we're doing all has to be approved through several steps of the government before we can actually get volunteers out there and tools working and restoration going on. So yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that has to happen first.
And Dave, I just have to share Phyllis Green, a great friend of mine and the 18-year superintendent, and that's who you met when you started with this Preservation Society. And she shared with Walt and I some time ago that, when you go to work on a project at the National Park Service, you work in dog years. So, nothing can happen quickly, but yet how efficient you have to be when I'm trying to calculate the miles that everything travels, because some of your supplies may be coming from Minnesota, but I'm sure some of the supplies coming over from the Ranger are also coming out of Houghton. And so all of these miles, every screw, paintbrush, a little bit of spackle, or I can't even imagine all of the supplies that you need, let alone when you go out there for 7 weeks, you've got to have all your own food. And how are you treating water out there too? I mean, all of these things just logistically give us a little glimpse of what would probably make most people pull their hair out.
Yeah, how do you do it all?
Yeah, I mean, it is. We have a bit of experience with it now, given that we've been doing it for a couple of years. But it is always a huge challenge. Like I said, just filtering water. We have gravity filters out there for drinking water, and but yeah, to get all the food out there to feed all the volunteers we have out there during the summertime, and we try to bring things out just once and buy something that'll last. Like we have nice beds out there that are comfortable. All the stuff that we bring out there, we want to make sure will last, because to dispose of something, you have to haul it all the way back to the mainland again and then bring something out to replace it. So we definitely only want to do things once whenever possible. But yeah, it's a huge logistical challenge to bring things out that far into the lake. And everything's handled by hand several times. And like I said, it goes up on small boats to get up to the lighthouse itself and carried up stairs upon stairs upon stairs up the tower. So it's huge. It really is.
What do you have for power out there? What's your power source?
Yeah, we just have a small generator that we use for charging tools and electronics right now. We have solar power in the works that we'll hopefully install this coming season. That'll help a little bit with just having more passive electricity available. But yeah, we just use a generator for when we need things. But that's not too much. Most of our tools are battery operated, so we're pretty self-sufficient.
So we're talking with David Gerth today, founder and director of the Rock of Ages Lighthouse Preservation Society, on our podcast. And, David, you mentioned volunteers and living out there and all of that. I'm curious, because I'm really honestly not terribly familiar with what the work is that you're doing out there. Tell me about the volunteers. Tell me about living on site while you're out there for this. I mean, how do you pull all of that off?
Yeah, most of the volunteers that come out with us are out for a week at a time. So they come out on Saturday, and they're out there for a week, and then they leave on the next Saturday. So when they first get out to the island, to Isle Royale, we go up to our cabin on Barnum Island, and then we're there until the weather calms down enough to actually get to the lighthouse. Because if you've seen pictures of the lighthouse, there's one dock to tie up on, and it faces the open lake. There's no lead to it whatsoever, so it has to be perfectly calm to tie up at the dock. So you have to wait for calm weather and then head out to the lighthouse with all the volunteers and all their gear, and then drop them off, and then the boat leaves. And then you're out there for however long you can be there until the following Saturday when the ferry comes to take them off the island again. So they have about a week to get our work done before they take off again. So, and most of the work we're doing is replastering walls, installing wood floors, putting in new windows, lots and lots of painting, and just an immense amount of cleaning and removal of debris. There's just tons of stuff just to move all these out there. It seems there's always something that has to go upstairs or downstairs, and there's always, like I said, huge amounts of debris just to remove from the lighthouse.
Okay, so I got to ask you this then. In terms of doing this is a lot of work, a lot of thought, a lot of planning for something that maybe a lot of people don't even really see. A lot of people don't make it by this in terms of being able to actually see the floors, get up close to the windows, all of that. Why is this something that you do, and how much of this answer of why was a catalyst for getting the Preservation Society going?
Yeah, well, it's just an amazing place to be. It's to be at the top of a lighthouse in the middle of Lake Superior and look around and see nothing but water and Isle Royale in the distance is just an amazing experience. And to be able to sleep out there at night and hear the waves around you, it's just an amazing experience that just more people should be able to experience, in my opinion. And to be able to restore the lighthouse and welcome the public out to the lighthouse to spend the night, to just go up and view the tower from the top and experience it is just something that most people don't get a chance to do nowadays, and they really should be able to. And that's what always drives us, is whenever we have new volunteers that come out and experience it, it reminds us just how special it is to be at a place like this. and how blessed we are to be able to be a part of it.
Dave, what's it feel like when there's a storm? Because you're there July and August. August, you can get some big blows. What's that like?
Mm-hmm. It really is amazing. Thunderstorms and when a good gale comes through, it's really amazing. Because a couple times you can see the storms coming from a long ways out. So you can hear them coming across the lake, and so to get up to the top of the tower and kind of button things up, and then wait for the wind to hit the tower, and just the sounds and the feels just of being there. It's almost indescribable. It really is. And thunderstorms at night are just amazing to hear thunder rolling across the open water. It's just an indescribable experience. It really is amazing.
Your passion is really coming through, Dave, in this conversation. I mean, it's really great that you're doing this work. And you also do work with volunteers, obviously, on this. And the question I have is, do you need more volunteers? And I guess what types of folks are you looking for in terms of volunteers? Do they have to be hands-on all across the board? Tell us about volunteers and what maybe you're looking for.
We do need a lot of specialized volunteers, experienced carpenters, especially, and boat drivers are always people we're looking for. But we also need people that are just passionate about what they do and being a part of things. That's kind of the most important quality in a volunteer that we look for, is just people that are really, passionate about being there and helping. And that's something that's really, really special for us.
What's on the agenda for the work summer of 2022?
This coming season will be pretty exciting. We're going to be finishing the restoration of the bathroom, which is a very important part of the tower.
I
would say so, yeah.
It is. We're very excited about that part. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a fully functioning, full bathroom with hopefully flush toilets and everything. Mm-hmm. That's the plan right now. And then the other exciting project for the season is working on the exterior masonry of the tower. We're working to acquire a grant that will allow us to restore the exterior, and that's cleaning the masonry, patching all the cracking that's on the face of the tower, and then painting it, just to start to have it outwardly apparent that we're doing restoration work out there. Because up till now, most of the restoration work has been inside, just making it safe for volunteers to be out there long term, so we can get a lot of work done. Because the only way to get a lot of work done is to be able to be out there for long stretches of time. Otherwise, when we first started, we were ferrying back and forth every single day when the weather was good to spend the night on Isle Royale and then work during the day at the lighthouse. So now that we're able to stay out there for weeks on end, you can get a lot of work done.
So a quick question, if somebody wants to be a volunteer, how can they do that? Like, how can they get a hold of you or the Preservation Society to get that going? Because someone might be listening right now and says, this is right up my alley.
Yeah, the first way is just to become a member of the Preservation Society, because they always get first announcements whenever we announce the volunteer opportunities in the springtime. And we just ask for a little bio, who they are, why they want to do this work. And we always put a little volunteer manual out there saying what it's really like out there, just so people know. Because it's, like I said, it's a very remote place, and it's a big lighthouse, but the quarters can be kind of tight. So we want to make sure that people can, get along with that sort of thing. But yeah, usually it's in the spring when we announce all the volunteer opportunities for the coming work season in the summertime.
You're going to have a flood of volunteers now that you're going to have a flush toilet. I got to ask this. A flush toilet, so you're drawing water from the lake. Do you have a holding tank that's going to be emptied at the end of the work season?
Right now we're trying to work with having a full treatment system with discharge that's all approved by the EPA. That's the hope right now. Either that or we'll be doing a large centralized composting system.
Oh, okay.
So we're hoping that the discharge system can work out and get a full approval, because there's a system to go through to get that approved. But it's all government, so it's
it is what that is. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yep. I hear that. I'm in, and you could always swim maybe if you needed a shower. But yeah, you can let go of a shower for a week. Here's my other question. I could be really good with a mop and a broom, and I can sweep the flies. if I'm going to be painting the outside of that tower, now we're 132 feet tall, and all of a sudden I realized painting that you not necessarily have a ladder, right? How is that going to happen?
That's all contract work. So we have to hire a contractor for that specialized work.
Okay.
So yeah, anything that's on the exterior of the tower that's not feet on the floor, that has to be done by a contractor that has lots of experience with that sort of thing. Because the exterior work, it's a huge tower. There's not going to be scaffolding going up on that thing. It would be way too much material to bring out. So the contractor that we're hoping to have come out to do the work, that's all in a Bosun chair swinging out the side of the tower, which there aren't many people that do that kind of work. So, but luckily we found somebody, and hoping that all the financing comes through, and we can get that going this coming summer. But that will be very exciting to see for sure.
And that's where, of course, all the grants and everything would come in, too, with exterior restoration. So David Gerth is with us today on the podcast. He is founder and current director of the Rock of Ages Lighthouse Preservation Society. We touched on it briefly a little bit about the Preservation Society, but David, how did it get started? What was the thing? What was the catalyst that made this really become something?
Well, I was trying to find something to do back when I was younger, before I was married and before I had a kid, back when I had time. And and I came across Rock of Ages as I was trying to find a lighthouse or an old building that needed restoration, just to try and get things going. And all the other lighthouses were taken that really piqued my interest. And then I saw Rock of Ages. I was like, no one's ever going to restore that lighthouse. It's a really cool one, though. So I started looking into it, and just fell in love with the place and the lighthouse and the stories that are out there. And, it just kind of, kept snowballing from there.
And you actually formed the Preservation Society, made it into something that's a bona fide organization to really kind of bring like-minded folks together, I'm sure.
But I love those.
Yep.
I got to share, Dave, those like-minded folks. When I looked over the roster of who's on the board of the Preservation Society, they share a lot of the same last name. And I was teasing Dave. Does this mean that you kind of, like the farmer in Iowa, he's got 12 kids because that way he knows he can get the work done? Is that part of your family? And maybe they all have that family. Right now, I think in your family, the word no or never doesn't exist, because you guys would look at anything and say, well, we can work that out. We get a plan. But it seems like you were pretty contagious with your passion to bring your family along.
Yeah, I was able to talk them into helping out, especially on the early days of forming the nonprofit and surveying the lighthouse and getting things going. It took a lot of years just to get things rolling and to get the lighthouse transferred. And that's all the really important work that happened early on. But it's not very exciting, and it was a lot of work to go through just to get the lighthouse transferred. So I owe them a lot to get us, to the point we're at now, where we're doing some really exciting restoration work and really getting things moving.
How much would you guess you've got in expenses? How much work has been done, and is there a dollar figure on that?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the dollar figure really would be for that. Usually our budget is somewhere, I think, around $50,000 a year or so. So we do things, most of our work's all volunteer, and a lot of our materials are donated. So we try to keep our costs down as much as possible. And we're able to do that through all those donations and grants, and especially in-kind donations of materials are really huge for us.
Dave, how does your 9-to-5 job or 8-to-4 job contribute to your knowledge of pulling together a project like this?
Oh, I work in building management for a school district, so I deal with old buildings and figuring things out. Yes, that's what I do for a living. So I leave that job behind in the summertime and go out and do the same thing at an old lighthouse in the middle of the lake. So.
So there's a note here that Frida put on the questions that I have to ask about it, and myself is something called the Wiki Award. What is the Wiki Award? What is that?
Oh, it's an annual award we give out to people that have really done some considerable, thing to help the organization or the lighthouse along over the years, whether that be financial or any other sort of, effort that they've done that's contributed to the restoration of the lighthouse.
But the word wiki, that's a common lighthouse kind of keeper term, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a slang term for a lighthouse keeper. The ones that trim the wicks are called wikis, because the lighthouse used to all be have an oil lamp up in the lantern room for lighting the lens. So the ones that trimmed the wicks were called wikis.
Makes sense to me. We're talking with David Gerth, who is founder and current director of the Rock of Ages Lighthouse Preservation Society. As we wrap up with you here, Dave, how can people find out more about your work, the Rock of Ages, and the society, and getting involved with this? What's a good way to find out more?
Oh, our Facebook page is always updated, and you can find out a lot of stuff on there, and that's just search Rock of Ages Lighthouse on Facebook, and you'll find us on there. Or we have a website, and that's just rockofageslps.org, and you'll find out all of our opportunities on there and history of the organization, lots of cool pictures. So both of those places are great places to find out about us. And
what's really fun, Walt, is that on that Rock of Ages Preservation Society page, they also have the weather. You guys have a weather station out there. So that's it's a running count of what the weather is 24/7, Dave?
Yeah, there's actually a NOAA weather station out there that's it's solar powered, so you can look it up any time of the year, winter, summer, whenever, and it'll give you the current weather at Rock of Ages Lighthouse.
That's cool.
I want to save that, so when come that February storm, when it's blowing sideways and it's you're thinking you're just about maybe a half a mile from the North Pole, we'll really get to check in to see what it's like at Rock of Ages.
Yeah.
That light was not manned after, in years past, like after October 1st. Did they pull the keepers off at that time?
It was manned until mid to late December. So it was into winter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's many harrowing stories of the keepers leaving the lighthouse in the winter time.
Wow.
There was even one case where the Coast Guard cutter was late getting out there, and they had run out of food. So they took to their open boat to head for the mainland in the wintertime because they were afraid they were going to get iced in. It's an interesting time of year to get off the lighthouse. So there's a lot of fun stories of other times where they had to man survival suits to slide down the stairs to get to the dock to get to the boat that's there waiting for them. It's very interesting.
Well, we appreciate your time today. It's been a pleasure talking with you, David. I mean, it's just your enjoyment of doing this, your willingness to do it, and your passion are driving you. And we, in particular, here on the podcast, and just want to say, thanks for that work and everybody that volunteers, because it's something that not everybody gets to see, but you're making it special for those who do. And thank you very much for that work you're doing. Thanks again for your time, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
David Gerth, the founder and current director of the Rock of Ages Lighthouse Preservation Society. Frida, this was just a great chat with him because that passion and that love for what he's doing is really, it just came through.
I can't imagine the planning, the persistence, there's so much. And if we could all just go get a blood transfusion.
Get some of his energy.
Oh, man.
The message there, though, is, again, we talk about this all the time with the big lake. It comes across. Your approach to it is to think it out in advance, make sure you understand what you're getting into, treating it all with respect and reverence and the history and the power of it. And this conversation to me really kind of exemplifies that about the overall experience of Lake Superior. And it was a pleasure having David on today. That was just a lot of fun. So,
and the reward is to be up at the top of that tower and look over that amazing blue, and just know that you are someplace really special in this world.
So that's going to do it for us on this latest Lake Superior podcast. We thank you for just joining in and giving it a listen. And you can find out more through the foundation site and all of that. We're just going to wrap it up and head on out and go think about lighthouses. I'm Walt Lindala.
And I'm Frida Waara.
Thanks for checking out the latest Lake Superior podcast.
The National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation, NPLSF, is the only official nonprofit 501c3 fundraising partner of the National Park Service for all 5 U.S. national park sites on Lake Superior.
To learn more about NPLSF projects and programs, you can visit the website at nplsf.org or friend them on Facebook.
I'm Frida Waara.
And I'm Walt Lindala. Thanks for listening to the Lake Superior podcast.
This podcast made possible with the support of the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation and Media Brew Communications.
This episode brought to you by Cafe Imports, Minneapolis-based importers of fine specialty green coffees. Independently owned and operated since 1993, Cafe Imports has been dedicated to decreasing its impact on the earth through renewable energy, carbon neutrality, and by supporting conservational efforts in places where quality coffee is grown and also where quality coffee is consumed. Where does your coffee come from?